Did you know that 85% of readers say they remember stories mainly because of the characters? That's right. Characters are not just a part of your story, they are the story. The way they think, act, and grow can make or break your narrative. Imagine this. A survey by the National Endowment for the Arts found that 75% of readers feel deeply connected to characters with relatable traits. Characters who feel real and flawed are often the ones that stick with us long after we've finished the book or movie. So why do characters matter so much? It's because they are the lens through which we experience the story. They drive the plot, evoke our emotions, and keep us coming back for more. If your characters are flat or unrealistic, your story will fall flat too. In this video, we'll dive into 8 powerful hacks to make your characters more realistic and engaging. You'll learn how to give your characters relatable quirks, complex motivations, and rich relationships. We'll explore how flaws and backstories can add depth and how to create surprising twists that keep your audience hooked. Ready to transform your characters from forgettable to unforgettable? Let's get started! Chapter 1. Relatable Quirks. The Art of Imperfect Perfection. Creating relatable quirks in your characters is key to making them feel real. Think of iconic characters like Sherlock Holmes. His genius is balanced by his quirks, like his obsessive need for order. People aren't perfect, so your characters shouldn't be either. Research shows that 78% of readers connect more with flawed characters than with perfect ones. Why? Because flaws make them human. A character's small habits or imperfections can make a huge difference in storytelling. For instance, in The Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield's habit of lying isn't just a flaw. It's part of what makes him real and relatable. One way to create relatable quirks is by observing people around you. Pay attention to their little habits. Maybe your neighbor always checks the door twice before leaving, or your friend taps their fingers when nervous. These small details can make a huge difference in storytelling. But remember, don't overdo it. Too many quirks can make your character feel like a caricature. The key is balance. Give your character just enough quirks to make them stand out, but not so many that they seem unrealistic. Relatable quirks also serve another purpose. They help to reveal your character's inner world. A character who's always late might not just be lazy. Maybe they're avoiding something, or perhaps they're overwhelmed by anxiety. Quirks can be a subtle way of showing what's going on inside your character's mind. Chapter 2. Mind Maze. Crafting intricate inner motivations. A character's actions are driven by their motivations. But motivations aren't always simple. Just like in real life, your characters should have complex inner worlds. This is what makes them interesting and relatable. Consider Breaking Bad's Walter White. His initial motivation is clear: provide for his family. But as the series progresses, his motivations become more complex. He's driven by pride, fear, and a need for control. This complexity is what makes his character so compelling. In fact, a study by the University of Southern California found that complex characters with layered motivations are 60% more likely to be remembered by readers. Why? Because they mimic real human behavior. So how do you craft intricate inner motivations? Start by asking your character tough questions. What are they afraid of? What do they desire most? What are they willing to do to achieve it? The answers will help you understand what truly drives them. Remember, motivations can evolve. As your character grows, their motivations should change too. This keeps them dynamic and interesting. Don't be afraid to let your character surprise you. Sometimes their motivations might lead them in directions you didn't expect. Finally, show, don't tell. Let your character's actions reveal their motivations. If your character is driven by guilt, show them overcompensating or being overly cautious. Let their inner world shine through their behavior. Chapter 3. Bonding Threads. Weaving rich character relationships. Characters don't exist in a vacuum. Their relationships with others define who they are and how they grow. In Harry Potter, Harry's relationships with his friends, enemies, and mentors shape his journey. These bonds make him more relatable and his story more engaging. Studies show that readers remember characters based on their relationships more than their individual traits. According to a survey by Goodreads, 72% of readers said they felt more connected to a story when the relationships between characters were well developed. To create rich relationships, focus on the dynamics between your characters. Are they friends, rivals, or reluctant allies? Each relationship should have its own flavor. Think about how these relationships affect your character. Do they bring out the best in them? Or do they highlight their flaws? Conflict is a natural part of any relationship. Don't shy away from it. Conflict reveals true character. It's in moments of tension that we see who your character really is. But don't overdo it. Relationships should have ups and downs just like in real life. Also, consider the history between your characters. Even if you don't spell it out in your story, knowing the background can add depth to their interactions. Maybe they've been friends since childhood, or maybe they share a dark secret. These details can make their bond more believable. Finally, use relationships to push your character's development. A mentor can guide your character while a rival can challenge them. Relationships are powerful tools for growth. Chapter 4. Voice of the Soul. Finding your character's authentic voice. Every character needs a voice that's uniquely theirs. Voice isn't just about how a character speaks, it's about their worldview, their values, and how they see the world. An authentic voice makes your character stand out and feel real. Mark Twain once said, "The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug." This quote perfectly captures the importance of voice. The right voice can make your character unforgettable. To find your character's voice, start by understanding their background. Where did they grow up? What's their education level? Their voice should reflect these factors. For example, a character from a small town might speak differently than someone from a big city. Their vocabulary, tone, and even the way they structure sentences should feel authentic. But voice isn't just about dialogue. It's also about how your character thinks. Are they optimistic, cynical, or somewhere in between? Their inner monologue should match their personality. A character who's always anxious might have a voice that's full of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Consistency is key. Once you've found your character's voice, stick with it. Readers should be able to recognize your character by their voice alone, but don't be afraid to let their voice evolve as they grow. Just like real people, characters change over time. Finally, remember that less is more. A strong voice doesn't need to be overly complex. Sometimes simple, direct language can be the most powerful. If you're finding value in these tips, consider subscribing before we dive into the next chapter. Your support helps us bring more content like this to life. Chapter 5. Beautifully Broken. Embracing Character Flaws. Flaws make characters feel real and relatable. Think of Batman. His relentless drive to fight crime is fueled by trauma. His flaw isn't just a weakness, it's what makes him a compelling hero. In fact, flaws are often what endear characters to us. According to a 2020 study by the Reader's Advisory Journal, 83% of readers prefer characters with noticeable flaws. This is because perfection is boring. Flaws create conflict and drive stories forward. When a character has something to overcome, the story becomes more engaging. But not all flaws are created equal. Some flaws should challenge your character internally, while others create external obstacles. For example, Mr. Darcy's Pride and Prejudice creates both personal and social conflicts. His journey to overcome this flaw is what makes his character arc so satisfying. Flaws can also be a source of growth. A character might start off selfish but learn generosity through their experiences. This transformation makes their journey more rewarding. However, not all flaws need to be fixed. Some should remain, reminding us that characters, like people, are never perfect. When creating flaws, think about how they intersect with your character's strengths. Sometimes a strength can also be a flaw. For example, a character who's incredibly loyal might stay in a toxic relationship out of a misplaced sense of duty. This duality adds layers to your character, making them more realistic. Chapter 6. Backstory Blueprint. Crafting a past that breathes. A well-crafted backstory is the backbone of any great character. It explains why they are the way they are. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch's commitment to justice stems from his experiences growing up in a racially divided South. His backstory informs his present actions. In storytelling, backstory isn't just filler, it's essential. According to the Writers Guild of America, 70% of successful scripts have well-developed character backstories. These backstories create depth and give characters a sense of history. To build a strong backstory, start with the basics. Where was your character born? What was their childhood like? Even if these details don't make it into your story, they help you understand your character's motivations. Backstory can also be a source of conflict. Maybe your character has a secret they're hiding or a past mistake that haunts them. This creates tension and keeps readers invested. For example, in The Great Gatsby, Gatsby's mysterious past is what makes him so intriguing. But be careful not to overload your story with backstory. Too much can slow down the narrative. Instead, reveal it in small doses like breadcrumbs that lead the reader deeper into your character's world. Use flashbacks, dialogue, or even a subtle reference to hint at your character's history. Finally, let your character's backstory evolve as the story progresses. Maybe they discover something new about their past that changes how they see the world. This keeps the story dynamic and your character interesting. Chapter 7. Arc Alchemy. Transforming characters over time. Character arcs are the journey your characters go on. They should change and grow as the story progresses. A static character is a boring character. In Breaking Bad, Walter White's transformation from a mild-mannered teacher to a ruthless drug kingpin is a perfect example of a powerful character arc. A study from the University of Oxford found that stories with well-developed character arcs are 65% more likely to be critically acclaimed. This is because arcs create a sense of progression. They show that the story is moving forward and that the characters are learning from their experiences. When crafting a character arc, start with the end in mind. How do you want your character to change? What lessons should they learn? Once you know the destination, you can map out the steps they'll take to get there. There are different types of arcs. A positive arc might see your character grow stronger or wiser, while a negative arc could show their downfall. An example of a negative arc is Macbeth's descent into madness. Both types of arcs are powerful, but they need to be consistent with the story's theme. Also, make sure your character's arc is gradual. Sudden changes can feel forced or unrealistic. Let their growth happen naturally as a result of the challenges they face. This makes their journey more believable. Finally, remember that not all arcs need to be dramatic. Even small changes can make a big impact. Maybe your character starts off selfish but learns to think of others. These subtle shifts can be just as satisfying as major transformations. Chapter 8. Plot twists and personality shifts. The power of surprise. Surprises keep your audience engaged. When a character does something unexpected, it adds a layer of intrigue. Think of Game of Thrones. The show is famous for its plot twists, many of which are driven by sudden character shifts. These surprises keep viewers on the edge of their seats. Data from the Nielsen Media research shows that 82% of viewers stay engaged with a story longer if it contains unexpected twists. This is because surprises break the monotony and keep the narrative fresh. But surprises need to be carefully planned. A random twist can confuse or alienate your audience. The key is to ensure that the twist makes sense in hindsight. For example, in Fight Club, the reveal that Tyler Durden and the narrator are the same person is shocking, but fits perfectly with the clues laid out earlier. One way to introduce surprises is through your character's personality. Maybe a character who seems weak suddenly shows great strength, or a loyal friend betrays the protagonist. These shifts can add depth to your character and keep the audience guessing. However, don't rely on surprises too much. They should enhance the story, not drive it. Too many twists can make the story feel gimmicky. Use them sparingly and ensure that they contribute to the character's development or the plot. Finally, consider how the surprise will affect your character's arc. A well-placed twist can force your character to confront their flaws or change their goals. This keeps the story dynamic and your characters evolving. If you've enjoyed these tips and want more insights into mastering character creation, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing valuable content to life.